think there's a lot of ambiguity about the impact of tariffs on domestic prices, in part because the size of the tariffs that we saw back in the 2018 implementation were relatively small, just a mere 20 billion of total tariffs, on an economy that's $25 trillion. That essentially the effect of just that tariff is about 0.1% of core PCE growth. So it wasn't a big macroeconomic effect. The thing that is valuable in terms of looking at it is looking at the mechanism, since today's tariffs are likely to be meaningfully more substantial if implemented consistent with campaign rhetoric. We can look at those past cases to understand the mechanics of how the tariff dynamic flowed through to onshore prices. And then, of course, we can start to think about what the probability is that we'll have more sizable tariffs in the US ahead. And here, I think the case study of the Chinese 2018 case is very instructive. Many people will look at what happened to prices, even import prices from China, following the 2018 implementation, and fail to recognize the fact that actually a fair amount of the price increase from the tariffs actually happened before the tariffs were actually implemented. And you can see this over here on the left-hand side, which is Chinese import prices from China. Overall, this should have amounted to, something like a two-ish, let's call it a 2.2% increase in prices if you were to just pencil out what the direct effect was of the tariffs, given the size of them and the overall imported goods from China. And what you see over here on the right-hand side is basically, if you go product by product, what you see is that you had the trend in Chinese tariffs. Basically, the trend in Chinese import prices, they were falling. They had been falling for an extended period of time leading up to this. In 2017, after the election, when tariffs were started to get discussed, you saw a stabilization, essentially moving sideways, elevating the effective price relative to the ongoing previous trend. And then once the tariffs were implemented, a return to the previous disinflationary trend in Chinese import prices. All told, if you look at the difference between the price that was actually implemented, the pre-election trend relative to the post-election trend, essentially it was a one-time shift up about 1.7%, give or take, which represents about an 80% flow through of the effective tariff on that share of Chinese goods. I think the thing that's interesting is if you look at the right-hand side, you basically see that story exist for all products, where you had deflationary pressures heading into the tariffing. Then from January 2017 to September 2018, a sort of leveling out of the price across many of those, sort of a reversal of that disinflationary trend, and then a return to that trend once the tariffs were implemented. All of this highlights, to the extent that there is ambiguity about whether or not tariffs are a meaningful, whether tariffs are inflationary, I think what it pretty clearly shows is that tariffs are inflationary. And, in this particular case, that, the flow through effect is relatively substantial. It may not be a perfect one-for-one flow through, but it's much closer to a meaningful flow through than it is a de minimis flow through.